And I am glad you have joined us online for our online worship service today. Our text today takes us to the middle of a controversy that is brewing between Jesus and his followers and the religious authorities in Jerusalem. These religious authorities are called Pharisees, and 10 chapters ago in Matthew 12, they've already decided that they're going to kill Jesus. And now we are in Matthew chapter 22, and these same Pharisees, who are already plotting to kill Jesus, flatter Jesus and seek to manipulate him and trap him with a question about tax policy and loyalty. Jesus proves that he is master of the situation, and he refuses to be caught in their well-laid trap, manipulating the moment beautifully. Now, the word manipulate has a certain connotation, doesn't it? It's negative. We use it mostly negatively. It brings to mind a person who uses other people, trickery, deception. It brings to mind Pharisees seeking to entrap Jesus and play the crowds against him. However, the word manipulate is a neutral term. It comes from manos, manipulate. It means skillful handling, working with one's hands to make or fix or shape. As in, show and tell this morning. Hang on. I might be going out of the camera to reach for this and coming back to the camera. See this beautiful chalice and paten? Susan Scott manipulated clay into these beautiful pieces that we will use for communion when we are able to do that again. It's remarkable work how she's manipulated clay into this chalice and paten for communion. Over years of practice, through care and knowledge of the clay she works, Susan manipulates the clay on her potter's wheel, fashioning beautiful items in this communion set. It's meant to be used, and we will use it one day for Holy Communion together. We can use that word manipulate in other situations as well, as in my mother skillfully manipulated whatever ingredients she found in the freezer and pantry into a delicious meal during some pretty lean years. Or a painter manipulates paint and color and brushes. A quilter manipulates needle and thread and fabric and shapes. A woodworker manipulates chisel and wood and other implements. These are all tools and materials that are meant to be used, meant to be handled and manipulated together, meant to be spent. Each year, faithful members of this congregation volunteer and come together willingly to manipulate the resources and costs of operating to shape a budget for the coming year of ministry. We call them the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee carefully reviews ministry expenses and income sources, and they create a budget to guide the coming year of ministry. This year, we are less sure than ever about what that budget should look like. What does a church budget for 2021 look like? Will we be able to gather? Will there be a vaccine or therapeutic responses? Even with these unknowns, the Finance Committee skillfully handles the projections, skillfully and carefully shapes what members pledge to give for ministry to then match up with how we feel called as a community to gather and care and serve and learn. I invite you to look at your own resources as a family or an individual and skillfully handle them in ways that will allow you to faithfully give for our continued gathering and caring and serving and learning. For 6 weeks shy of 40 years, so I'm just going to say 40 years. For 40 years, St. Andrew's has served families and individuals that come and worship here. And we have also served those around us who are in great need, whether they ever come through the doors or not. Neighbors that live next to us, people who drive by day in and day out and then suddenly need spiritual support. That's at the heart of loving like Jesus loves. I invite you to thoughtfully align your spending and saving and giving to match up with what you value most, with how you are called to live this one precious life that God has given to you. I pray that you are inspired out of gratitude to God to respond to your values with faith-filled generosity. I pray that you will make a financial pledge for ministry in 2021 to continue the worship, pastoral care, outreach, and formation ministries of this congregation. If you are in a period of readjustment, facing unknown career changes, or struggling financially, please reach out to me for prayer and support. If you are struggling to put food on the table, please give me a call. Let us know so that this community can drop groceries by. This is a stressful time for many individuals and families. And while not all of us gather in person, we do continue to minister to one another in the ways that we are able, in the ways that are safe for us. This community operates completely on your generous giving. And all that generosity makes it possible to hold online worship services with this upgraded equipment that I'm looking at and upgraded Wi-Fi here in the parish house. Your generosity makes it possible to drop groceries off on a neighbor's doorstep, to organize into groups that check on one another over the phone and through email. Your giving makes it possible to prepare couples for marriage and support families who are struggling or in conflict. Your giving makes it possible to educate children and youth and adults in living a life that glorifies God and is deeply satisfying, filled with integrity, dedicated to serving others in love. Your generous giving makes it possible to approach hardship, loss, and illness with dignity and prayer and spiritual companionship. Your generous giving makes it possible for St. Andrew's to be a beacon of hope in this community, a place people turn to when things hit the fan, that space we can conjure in our own hearts, even if we're not here physically in this space that represents a place where we can be completely in the presence of God and among God's beloved people. We all come to this place, online or in our bodies, to be shaped by God, to be skillfully handled by the God who created us and loves us and desires our total flourishing. God is beyond our skillful handling. In fact, it goes the other way around. We are called to open up our lives to the manipulations of Jesus, to have God skillfully handle us and shape us. We want to manipulate God into our image instead of being manipulated by God into God's image. Thankfully, God is too masterful to be manipulated by us. So we don't have to really worry about it. God made us in God's image, and God looks at us and sees an imprint of God all over us. From Genesis, first chapter of Genesis, God saw everything that God had made, and indeed it was very good. That goodness of God's own handiwork is what we offer back to God as we gather. We come together online and in person to be coins, if you will, coins imprinted with God's image, ready to be spent by God in whatever way delights God. Jesus will not be manipulated by the Pharisees, nor by us. We do not gather to spend Jesus. Instead, we gather for Jesus to spend us, for Jesus to spend us in the ways that he spent himself when he walked this earth. He spent himself teaching his followers to forgive and to honor God, to become the kingdom of heaven. He spent himself healing. He spent himself gathering for meals with undesirable people and his friends. And then the undesirable people became his friends. He spent himself challenging the parts of society that disregarded the needs of vulnerable people. He spent himself on a cross. He took all the violence and blame, and he received it on that cross. And then he spent himself again, bursting through the wall that separates the living from the dead to show us that we too will live in eternal glory with God. We are a precious resource that God is using in this world right now to bring hope to the discouraged and healing to the sick, connection to the outcast. We are a precious resource that God is using right now in this moment with all that's going on this very day to challenge what is broken, to manipulate it into something more just, more aligned with God's way. I wonder if you can identify an area of your life where God is using you in particular, to help manipulate this world into a more beautiful, useful, and holy existence. Is there an area of your life where you and God are working together to shape something beautiful and practical and good? Maybe you and God are painting it or cooking it up, sewing it, carving it, shaping it together. Also know that God is shaping you. Do you sense that you are being shaped by God, skillfully handled by God to do this work? God is shaping us, and God is shaping the world around us with our help. You and I, we know that we belong to God, and that God will bless the ways that we offer ourselves to bring goodness and justice and hope into this world. I want to end with that sound. I can't make it for you, but you're going to have to imagine with me. Have you ever been standing in the grocery store line trying to, exchange pleasantries with the person checking you out, and somebody pours a whole coffee can of coins into that coin machine in the grocery store, and it goes ting, 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 ting. You know that sound? Okay. It's very loud. You can hear that sound in your head. That's what we sound like. We are God's resource. We are God's coins. Ting, 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 ting. God's coins being cashed in on the kingdom promises of hope and grace and goodness. That's us. Ting, 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 ting. All day long. We are the coins. And we are meant to be spent, my friends. We are meant to be spent.
Amen. Amen.